Welcome to Registered, the podcast of the Catholic Register, where we'll be taking a look beyond the headlines of the stories that graced all of our platforms this past week. I'm Mickey Conlon, editor of the Register, alongside associate editor Quinton Amundson and reporter Luke Mandato. This week's episode is brought to you again by Missions and Martyrs, the Catholic Register's new magazine celebrating 100 years of the Martyrs Shrine in Midland, Ontario. Go to catholicregister.org, Shrine 100, or call 1-855-441-4077, extension 1, to order your copy today. Long, hot summer, guys, and that brings us to the end of July. Who knows? The heat going to turn down a little bit? I don't know about you guys. I don't. I hope it doesn't. I can take the heat. All I need to do is remember February to make me tone down any of my complaints. But at the end of July, that brings us to the proverbial dog days of summer. And the church is not immune to this, just like the rest of society around us. Things are a little quieter, maybe a little more calm, but then there's always those topics that just don't go away in such a time. And this week we turn to it once again, and that would be Christian persecution worldwide. We've done so many stories on this topic, it actually gets pretty frustrating to read about it. But it's not going away. This week, the ICC, International Christian Concern, dropped its 2026 Global Persecution Index. This year, to no surprise, it spotlights intensifying oppression of Christians, particularly in Nigeria and Iran. Quinton, some pretty harsh stats out of this, especially Nigeria, where thousands have died. Almost 15 million people have been exiled from their homes and into refugee camps, according to the ICC. You've been detailing these sorts of stats for some time now. What does the ICC tell us in their latest report?
Well, you're right, Mickey. None of us want to write about this because it's such troubling news in a world where we wouldn't write about this. That means the persecution wouldn't be taking place, but we have to definitely share these disquieting trends out there. And for a long time, we've been trying to get to the forefront who is exactly causing and driving this persecution of Christians in Nigeria. And there has been, unfortunately, a little bit of a misguided narrative where for so long it's been Boko Haram and ISIS groups getting the lion's share of attention. Internationally, they were the subject of the military strikes by the U.S. administration, both in May and last Christmas. But it's really these Fulani militants who are responsible, according to a local on-the-ground group, that are doing 44% of the civilian killings, compared to 12% combined for Boko Haram and the ISIS group. So this is a group that just knows how to, maim en masse. They know how to get inside of these rural communities, disrupt these large worship events, and also because they have a big cattle enterprise, they get people off their farmland and get them into these overcrowded concentration camps. When I spoke to Sean Wright, it's so dangerous for the International Christian Concern president that even he was at risk of possibly being abducted by the Fulani during a goodwill relief trip there in June. But fortunately, a very skilled driver was able to get them out of the danger area. But how risky that is! Like, it just really boggles the mind that even going in there to do some goodwill work nowadays, you could be at risk of kidnapping.
Well, how is it that I know everything has been focused on ISIS? I guess understandably so for Western media because there's such a huge presence in the East for so long there. How has the Fulani kind of slipped under the wire there, and they've not been getting the blame that they should be getting for carrying out these massacres in many instances.
Well, I think it's really because of that lack of, name, recognition. It's a group that's just starting to emerge, and it takes a little bit while for people to really recognize an emerging threat. And of course, we have people that are just married to the idea of, well, it looks good for us to go after these ISIS groups because they are very prominent and dangerous in other countries. So from that perspective, you get a sense of why the Trump administration is going in that direction. But you also have to look at the complicity of the Nigerian government. While they're willing to be a partner, apparently, with the U.S. government in taking out these ISIS groups and identifying targets, why are they not showing the same willingness to take care of the Fulani? So I think you have to be asking the Nigerian government that question about why the Fulani is not a very important threat for them to be dealing with. And I think you're going to see a lot of the answers come around to corruption. Corruption is the reason why.
Corruption, government
Yes.
corruption. My
Yeah,
God.
what a concept. Governments and
Yeah.
corruptions. We've never heard about that before, but it seems to be, yeah, prevalent here.
During your call, Quinn, did you get to a bottom line about any way that Christians and Catholics around the world can help support? I feel like a big part of our reporting is often when we look at persecuted Christians around the world, avenues we can take to stand with them. Was it a matter of solidarity right now? Is there any sort of prayer or thing that was discussed during your call?
Prayer is always great, Luke, and I know you've spoken to like the Open Doors groups before, and they do these prayer campaigns, and there are these, of course, groups like the ICC and all these other groups that delve into equipping persecuted Christians. I mean, they do their fundraising campaigns, but I think it's about time that people really become educated. So a thing like the Global Persecution Index, which you mentioned, Mickey, it does have 124 pages of the persecution context in all these areas across the world, whether it be Asia or Latin America, Africa. Why not read those resources and figure out what's happening and then have a conversation with people? Maybe CWL groups, parish groups, they could do some sort of fundraising drives. We got to be creative and we got to just recognize the urgency of the problem first.
Well, one of the problems with that is that, as you say, there's refugee camps just full of people. So we here in Canada have been quite known for accepting refugees. And the Catholic Church, of course, has been kind of at the forefront of it. But right now, I guess the Canadian Catholic bishops, they've never really been, there's never been an office for a sort of a migrant office. It's been kind of left to the dioceses around. We've, here in Toronto, we've got cross-cultural services. We've got the Office of Refugees. So they're no stranger to this refugee ministry. But of course, now the Canadian Catholic bishops have created their own migrant and refugee ministry. And as the bishops say, it's to serve as a national point of reference for dioceses, eparchies, parishes, religious communities, Catholic organizations, pastoral workers, and volunteers engaged in this growing area of ministry. So, Quinton, you wrote that story for us. What can you tell us about this new ministry?
That they're going to be a very welcomed asset for organizations like you mentioned, Catholic Social Services or the Calgary Catholic Immigration Society and, Catholic Cross Cultural Services who I spoke with. So they could very well arm pastoral, workers to, and how they could really effectively dialogue with so many of the newcomers coming to our country. They could train parishes on how to do these welcoming and onboarding activities to make new Canadians feel like they could acclimatize themselves into their communities. They could really advocate for perhaps the humane and compassionate migrant policies that really Pope Leo himself has really been speaking out about quite passionately since he became the Pope last May. So it's really quite a broad swath of services that they could do. And I'm sure that once they hire this national director, the scope of what it could offer and how it could be a sounding board or a support system for these agencies on the front lines, it'll become a lot more clear.
Yeah, because, well, as we say, the church itself is really, it's no stranger to this ministry. Well, dating back to, I'd say, maybe AD 1, and all into it. So, but the church, we've been there. We've seen the Syrian refugees come in here back, oh, that's got to be 10, 12 years ago. And Cardinal Collins, the Thomas Collins, he was right on top of that. And I'm sure out in Calgary, you see it, as you said. Edmonton's got the Catholic Social Services. So, again, no stranger to it, to this ministry. So we can only hope for bigger and better things. Let's hope so. Now, I know Luke has been sitting there mostly quiet. I guess it's that comes from having his past week off, but we have got him back working. He's right into it again. It's take a few days, but he's got some stuff coming through. You can look it up online for it with us. So after a week of rest and recharging, jump back into things and is working on a pretty interesting story out there. And this is one that, almost sounds like it could be a Hollywood flick. Could be a drama, could be a comedy. All right, Luke, you've been talking to a Toronto area chaplain who's got quite the unique skill beyond his chaplaincy. How about you share that with us?
The fighting minister. I can see it now, Mickey, on a marquee or a movie poster somewhere. The fighting minister, maybe a guy with a collar and a nice fight stance on the cover there. That is I guess you can call it the pseudonym of Ramuel Villardo. He is the spiritual guider and chaplain at Covenant House Shelter in Toronto, of course, working with at-risk youth here in the city. But as you mentioned, a very interesting side to him. We are looking at a 4-time Canadian national Muay Thai champion. So for all of the calm and patient work he's been putting in with youth at Covenant House, guiding them to better outcomes in their lives for the past 8 years, I believe, in his personal life, we're looking at, I don't know, Mickey, any experience in Muay Thai or martial arts that you know of?
None. I've none whatsoever. None.
I've done a little bit of Muay Thai training myself for a couple of months, and I can't even convey the level of intensity and violence and conditioning that it takes to compete at that level, even just in a local gym level, let alone representing your country on a provincial and national stage. So I had the chance to speak with Ram earlier this week, and it was just incredible to hear how he's sort of using, I guess, the ethos of Muay Thai and of combat sports and martial arts, and he's actually found a way to blend that into his day-to-day work at Covenant House. So, we've done stories, Mickey, with golf chaplains and how is a golfing priest, how is golf like the faith, or chaplains that work with Olympic athletes. Well, now we have a chance to sit down with a chaplain who can break your ribs with a roundhouse kick, but can also sort of show you a way to a better life, to channel that energy as you would through a fight and channel that in your daily life.
Well, I would imagine that with the youth, because just seeing how much they're into, well, the UFC fighting and that, which of course there's a lot of Muay Thai or however it's pronounced that is all part of that. So I would think he's probably got a fairly receptive audience.
Absolutely. He said that they really take to it, I think maybe because they understand. I don't know if it's because they understand that he's a very intense guy. You can see the passion. I've seen some videos of him doing his thing, whether in the gym or at Covenant House. He's a very intense, fiery guy. But you can just imagine, with all of his background in social care and working with these kids, it means very deeply to him. So we see this other side to him as well, where he's very involved. He's very compassionate, very listening. And again, it's just something that he never thought he could blend those two worlds. He kind of figured he would be, Muay Thai as a hobby, and this would kind of be his personal life. And it was the former spiritual director at Covenant House who recommended to him, I think the kids could really find something in this. You want to talk about knowing when to go forward, knowing when to step back, knowing even when to stand your ground. You know, these are kids that have been at risk all their lives. It's something they could really take to. And that's exactly the situation. That's exactly what we had the chance to talk about. So it's a weird dichotomy. I know you're going to mention it. Where is the place of in art that can be so violent, and what does that mean for when you can integrate, you know, faith into that as well? It's an interesting conversation.
Well, I would imagine he scares the kids in getting his message out there because they know he could kick their butts and everything. Kind of reminds me of an old skit by the Irish comedian Dave Allen. Now, this would go back into the 70s and early 80s, way before your guys' time. This guy is quite irreverent comedy, and quite often he'd bring religion into it. Nothing too disrespectful, but the one sketch I remember was about everyone lined up at one priest's confessional, while at the other one, there was no one. So someone in the big line goes, why is no one going to see Father so-and-so for confession? You hear all of a sudden, you did what? And the priest hops out of the confessional, grabs the poor confessor and lays a beating on him in front of everyone. So now I would imagine, wouldn't imagine, maybe the Muay Thai chaplain is anything like that, or is he?
I can't say for sure. I would hope not. But if you saw the videos, if you go to his Instagram, Mickey, and you see the way he's kicking these heavy bags in the gym, I can guarantee you some of the kids' eyes probably, you know, get pretty big when they start watching the demonstration of whatever he's doing. So he's also going to be delivering the next Office of Catholic Youth's Faith and Fitness Night coming up in August, which is going to be interesting. He said he's looking very much forward to that. So they're going to be joining together, praying the rosary. Then they're going to be going to his Muay Thai gym in Scarborough, going through a lesson and a bit of a Muay Thai workout, you know, the sparring, the heavy bag, working the pads. And then they're going to be going back to a local parish for Mass. So it's very interesting. We've seen these faith and fitness nights. He says this is the second one that they've done for Muay Thai. Usually it's weightlifting or like a jog around the block. So I think it's pretty interesting that we're getting the combat sports in there as well, but apparently very beneficial.
Well, you know what? The church is out there for everyone, not just all the, you know, the stereotypical pious person and that. You know, everyone's looking for something, and there's always a way to reach people. And you know, great credit to finding a way to mix these two. So best to him, and best to well, if you're out there listening and you're into looking to the faith and fitness, there you go. Go to the Office of Catholic Youth website, and maybe you could find a little bit about this. So, all right. Well, thanks, guys, because I think that's going to bring this episode of Registered to a close. And it's actually going to bring us to a little break in our podcast until probably early September. We're going to take a rest, recharge, and we hope to bring you something a little fresher when we return. So we wish you a great rest of the summer and hope you'll come back and join us again in a month or so. As always, thanks for tuning in. Thanks to Quinton and Luke for joining me. And remember, you can catch all the Catholic news you need at catholicregister.org. That's also where you can find details about our new magazine, Missions and Martyrs, which tells the stories of 100 years of the Martyrs Shrine in Midland, Ontario. Thanks again.